Hello and welcome to the Declutter Your Life workshop. My name is Bianca and I am from Bianca Black Consulting. Today's mission is to give you a clear first step to get you a clutter-free life. I thought this would be a really great way to kick off the workshop today, and it's just a little quote that I absolutely love. It is, "Clutter is a weight that has built on top of you so gradually you don't even realize anymore that it is holding you down." And this is exactly what we are focusing on today. So the three pillars that we are going to be focusing on in decluttering your life is one, the home, and this is the physical clutter in our home. Two is the mind, and we are all aware of the mind clutter that we carry around, plus time, our busy lives. So let's kick off with pillar number one, the home. This is probably the easiest of all the topics to recognize. It is also probably the reason why you found your way to this workshop. So when we're going through, here's a list of just the general clutter that we have everywhere in our cupboards, in our homes. So family knickknacks, papers, junk, mail, old newspapers, toys, clothes, furniture, hand-me-downs. Now I just want to pause here on the next one, freebies. Freebies is an absolute silent killer when you are trying to declutter your home. And it's the things that we get where you go to the supermarket and there's a promotion and you have an extra bits or bobs that comes with something for free, but you didn't intend to go out and get it yourself. It's when you perhaps stop past some fast food chain and they're giving away small token toys and the kids absolutely harass you for them, but they find their way into your home, and this is a huge source of clutter in people's lives. Craft items, random boxes, shoes, garbage, garage stuff, tools, car parts, decorations, DVDs, bad artworks, books. Now, also I'd like to pause on clutter in your home can also mean clutter outside your window as well. So if you look out your window and the view is not fantastic, it's, unpleasing, it's full of clutter and junk, this is something that actually can psychologically clutter up your home and your mind as well. So this is a bit of a crossover one. And I just like you to be mindful that this could be something that is also weighing you down. Things that are in your car, junk in there, kids' toys, water bottles, the old plastic straw, old technology, everyone has a bag of all the cords. Kid artwork. Now, this ties in with mum guilt, which we will be getting to a bit later, but just be mindful that it can be something that is cluttering up your life when you feel the need to keep every single artwork drawing, coloring in every time your kid puts a crayon to paper, that you need to keep it because you feel as though that if they ask for it and you can't produce it, then perhaps your child won't love you again. So this could be a little bit of a connection there. So just be mindful of it, but we don't really need to keep everything that they've ever touched as far as their artwork, but we will get to that one. Obviously, if you have a partner, husbands, girlfriends, boyfriends, they will have their own bag of things as well, and just general bits and bobs. So everyone is quite aware anyway of the typical home clutter, the stuff inside. And I'm not saying get rid of everything that you own and follow the minimalist movement. I'm just saying be wary of what's actually in there. Try and keep the things that are special to you and that you need and that you love and that you want to surround yourself with in your home. But I think it's time to start looking and addressing all the superfluous stuff in there that isn't enhancing your life at all. And in fact, it's doing the complete opposite. And it is probably weighing on top of you subconsciously, and you don't even realize that it's dragging you down. And it's the times when you're looking for something and you can't because the house is so full of other stuff and you can't find what you need, or you know that you have it and for the life of you, there is no way you can find it amongst all the mess. So it's something to look at. It's the easiest to tackle. Everyone knows how to start culling their wares and going through things. Everyone's aware of donating and recycling and passing things on to their new home. perhaps even eBaying or Gumtree, time to sell it off, recoup some cash from your goods, and actually in turn it will lighten up your life and lighten up your mind. So just as a side note, and before we move on, I just want to put in a little bit of a disclaimer here for the workshop. This workshop is not a lesson in cleaning your house, doing feng shui, rearranging the furniture. This workshop is about your headspace. We want to get to the source of your clutter and kill it. Now, as I mentioned, it's not about cleaning up the house. Everyone knows how to tidy up their drawers and to go through their items. But we want to take a step further into your mind. Why is this clutter here? How did it get here? And usually it is because it has started with something in your mind or an event, or perhaps it was the way you were brought up, the way you look at things. And this is what the workshop is about. And it's getting to the source of your clutter in your mind. Okay, so let's jump into it. The mind clutter pillar. This is the emotional part. It is invisible and also the physically heaviest of them all. I call it the silent killer. So the things that make up the mind clutter is the emotional baggage, past experiences that are being replayed in your life, reoccurring not so ideal situations. This I generally find is perhaps I have coached quite a few women that say, how did I get back into this situation again? It's those sorts of reoccurring, non-ideal relationships that people pick up, or you find yourself back in perhaps a job or a career job, and maybe your boss isn't that ideal, and you're like, how did I get back into this situation again where I am being led by someone that is lacking in morals or judgment, or who isn't a leader? It's these reoccurring situations that we want to look at. Moving on, other mind clutter areas, toxic people. This is a big one, really identifying the toxic people in your life. Anxiety, depression, panic attacks, the feeling of being out of control in your life. Most people can feel this ramping up, but they're not too sure how to start to backpedal on it or how to put on the brakes. So this is something I definitely urge you to seek help with as soon as you start feeling out of control. Addiction is another mind clutter area, but we can get into that a bit later. This usually and sometimes leads to drinking regularly, drug abuse, things like that. Life demands. Now I just want to pause here on your pusher. This is something I do a bit of coaching on, and it's addressing that little voice and little personality inside of you that is your pusher, that keeps you going, that almost runs you ragged. It just keeps pushing and pushing and telling you that you have to get things done, you have to clean the house, you have to get up and go to work, you have to do all these things, which you do, but it never lets you rest, your pusher. And it usually teams up with its best friend, your inner critic. And this is something that, well, it's probably a whole workshop on its own, really, but it's just something to be mindful of, and it is actually a thing, and it is something that you can seek help on, just quietening those voices. As we move on, family demands, family dramas, toxic family members. Now this is similar to the toxic people up there, but when it's a family member, it is very emotional, and it's quite emotional when you recognize that potentially the problem in your current situation could be from a toxic family member, and then learning how to balance this and how to move forward and how to manage this very delicate situation. Negativity from external people, and perhaps also your own attitude, which does lead on to bad attitudes, whether it's your own or whether it's someone that you spend a lot of time with. No hope, that real feeling of absolute loss and what's the point in going on, and there's no point because I'll never be able to achieve that. This also weighs you down. Mum guilt, which we did touch on before, and that feeling of I have to, obviously you want to be the best parent that you can be, but when it starts to rule your life and rule what you do, and you lose the power of being a parent because of it, then you do need to seek some sort of assistance. The loss of confidence and being really self-conscious, this is a huge weight on many people's shoulders, and it's definitely something that we can coach on further. But just be mindful of all of these things that are the mind clutters, and they're so heavy that I urge you, give a little bit of a shake off, and we can really feel the weight of those, so brush them off. Okay, now that we've had a little bit of a shake off of those very heavy words from the previous slide, let's move on to the third and final pillar of decluttering, which is time. This one is pretty self-explanatory, but do you ever stop to recognize this as clutter? It is the one that is probably the most physically demanding on us, as far as, we're running around absolutely ragged, just trying to get through the days. So do you have a problem with saying no, whether it's to a community group, your friends, your family, your children? You always feel the need to say yes just to keep the peace and to keep everyone happy. But maybe it's time to start looking at that and start fulfilling your needs. Now, I'm not saying don't volunteer and don't say yes just because of it, but just be mindful of what you're saying yes to and how much time it is actually taking, and whether you are still able to look after yourself and fulfill your own needs first. Is it something that, on the next point here, do you not want to go home? Even though this is a little bit of a darker one, perhaps you're filling up your time so you don't have to go to that place that you call home. And I urge you, if that is the case, then it's time to start looking at that and to lightening up your life and to seek some assistance, professional assistance, in what you can do next and what steps to take. The next one is mum guilt, and this is a big time sucker, really, when you are riddled with the mum guilt, and therefore you want to give your kids everything, which we all do, but there is no boundaries, and the kids want to try every single sport activity, every after school option there is. So you've signed them up for all these things, and then you're running around every afternoon to 1, 2, or 3 different events. And that's not really beneficial to everyone or anyone, really, and especially not the kids. Children do need some downtime as well. While I understand giving them some sort of activity to focus on, it keeps them, fit, healthy, focused. It gives them something moving into their teenage years to really work on. But at what cost? There is a fine line here. And while not most of us will be future Olympians, it is good to have activities, but maybe not 2 to 3 activities every afternoon. So just be mindful of, are you putting your kids into all of these things to suppress your own mum guilt? And the children will still, love you the same, but really have a look at where your time is being spent with them. So moving on, perhaps that you're busying up your time so you don't have to think about what's happening in your life, or you don't have to think about what you want to do or achieve, because it just seems easier to get up every day and do the old routine that's the same and comfortable. So something to think about. Maybe you're keeping yourself busy so that you don't have to interact with negative people, and maybe this one isn't such a bad thing. Maybe there is someone in your life that is particularly negative, so you just want to keep busy to keep yourself away from that, and that could be okay. But again, just be mindful that that is the actual driver on why you're busying up your time, and maybe it's time to start cutting those ties instead. The next one we did slightly touch on just before in the past slides, your pusher again, and this is the one, your pusher making you clean your house at 2 a.m. because perhaps your mother's coming over, or, we all like a great clean house, but when the pusher is in control and it's time to repaint your ceilings and you have to do it right now, and it is some silly time in the morning, then it's time to start looking at your pusher and just quietening that voice down a little bit. Other big time suckers, technology, phones, games, and apps. Now, I know we do live in a new digital sort of world, but this is something that is taking a lot of people's time and attention away from their loved ones. So perhaps it's time to start monitoring how much time you spend on these things and or make designated time for it. We all have family and obligations and phone calls, and these are all time suckers. Sometimes they're unavoidable, but just be mindful of where your time is
and I
actually
can think you get a gist of where the workshop's actually going. But just for a second,
I think it's time to lighten up a bit. Let's have a bit of a shake, move your arms, move your legs, take a deep breath in. Now, the health warning for this workshop, it isn't all doom and gloom. It is going to be fun and enjoyable. If it does bring up any feelings you have, you can sit there quietly and just mull them over in your own thoughts. But if there is emotion attached to them and you're really feeling that you do need to move forward with this and you do want to seek some assistance, please get in touch. And at the bottom here, I said, I won't leave you alone. And I didn't mean that in a stalkerish kind of way. I just meant please get in touch if it is bringing up some emotions for you and you do feel that you do need to work on it. I am a results coach and I have been working in this for the last 5 years. This year I'm working towards my international accreditation, so please get in touch. Other than that, please do go and see a health professional. Start with your GP. They are usually a great source of referring you to where you might need to go next or to seek other professional advice. The other disclaimer I do want to put in, I'm not a registered mental health professional. I am a coach. And I do urge you that if you are posing to having some of the more mental health sort of emotions crop up, please go and see a registered professional. Like I said, a GP, a psychologist, some sort of registered therapist. Please go and seek that. But otherwise, let's move on. And if you are feeling that you would like to work on this personally, please get in touch. So let's move it on. Now, my first question to you for this workshop is, do you want to change? Now, change, it doesn't have to be scary, it can be fun. So to take the scariness out of change, what we do is we actually start just talking about it, workshopping it, and start making a few plans. And once you've got a few plans and you can see the direction that you want to start to take, that's where the fun and the excitement comes from. So, from the question, do you want to change? Are you at a point in your life where you're just so frustrated and angry and pent up and everything is starting to clash and butt heads and you're feeling that real sense of tension? Is it time to change? Are you really feeling that right now? Because that's where I want you to be and that's where you're going to get most of the benefit from. So if the answer is yes, let's do it. Okay, so now that you've decided that yes, it's time to start moving and clear the clutter, I love this little quote. Clutter represents indecisions. Make a decision and clear the clutter. And it really, really does. So clutter starts to build up when at the time something is brought to our attention and we don't make the decision right then and there whether it is going to be of benefit to us or not. So this is something great to just take on with you from this workshop and start making those little incremental decisions at the time, and that in turn will actually stop the clutter build up in your life. So really, the workshop, even though it is about decluttering and clearing clutter, it is also about starting to make some more steadfast decisions at the time. And I think that's where a lot of people fall down with just making those decisions. So be mindful of it, that's one of the key factors of decluttering. So why are decisions so scary? Usually because it means change, and at the core people don't like a lot of change. People like the familiar, they like the memories, they like the comfort. And this is very true. People just like the regular routine, and when you're opposed with change, it can be quite confronting. Now, change can be fun and exciting and great, but we also want to be mindful that we don't want to absolutely change everything because we don't necessarily want to send ourselves into a tailspin freak out mode when our whole life is changed and the upheaval has occurred. So we want to do it incrementally, and that's how sustainable change comes along, and it's not scary when we do it in a controlled fashion. Also, decisions are usually often tied to money, and that's usually money going out, which absolutely scares a lot of people. And it is about, being scared that once I declutter or I get rid of this or that potentially, what if I need it again? What if I need to go and purchase that again? Or I've already got it now, so why would I get rid of it just in case? But just be mindful that this is why the clutter has built up in your life. And potentially it may mean that money might change hands at some point later on and you may have to purchase it again. But right now, the cost of holding on to it far outweighs if you're going to need it again in the future. So once again, please be mindful of that. Are you cluttering up your life with things so that you're almost trying to hoard money in a sense? You don't want to have to purchase it again. So be mindful of where this clutter is coming from, and this potentially could be an avenue of where it is coming from. So for this workshop, I put together a little workbook for anyone who would like to take part. I am going to try and put a link down the bottom, but if for some reason it's not there or you can't get it, please feel free to email me at biancablackconsulting@gmail.com, and I will more than happily give the workbook to anyone. And I would urge you to get the workbook because it does enhance the experience of this whole workshop, and you will be able to work through it. There is some tips and tricks in there that go further than what we address in this workshop, so you will definitely get more of a benefit by having the workbook and going through it. So as I said, please get in touch and I will happily give that workbook to anyone who wants to use it. So please hit me up. Okay. Now, before we get started on the workbook, I just want to take a moment and I'd love for you to close your eyes because I want you to connect with what it is that is cluttering your life. So take a moment, close your eyes, be still, find a nice little quiet moment and just focus on what is the actual clutter in your life. Where is it? Does it lie in your home, in the physical clutter? Is it in the mind, the past experiences, the emotional baggage? Is it in time? Are you running yourself ragged? So just know where your own clutter lies because this will help you moving through the workbook. It'll also help you with the first question. So close your eyes and connect to that. I want you to be visualizing while you've got your eyes closed, what does your clutter look like? If you felt like going further, you could start to connect with what does your clutter feel like. But for now, let's just close our eyes and visualize our clutter. Where is it? What is it? What is it doing to us? Once you've got that in your mind, time to come back, open your eyes, wiggle your toes and your fingers and come back to me. And it's time to get into the workbook. Okay, so the first question in the workbook is really identifying where your area of clutter is. And over the next couple of slides, we're just going to have a look at some hot tips for each of the pillars of clutter. And so starting off, we're going to look at some hot tips about home clutter. Number one, is your clutter coming from a need to spend? This comes from a place of happiness. Are you spending money and making purchases just to get that little dopamine hit, to feel that excitement, to feel that thrill, to be happy just for a moment? Is that where your physical clutter is coming from? Are you buying clothes like mad just to feel good in that instant? Another thing about the physical home clutter and trying to tackle it is don't try and do it all at once. This definitely ties in with number 5 down the bottom, which we'll get to, but just as a rule, don't try and tackle it all at once. Number 3, when you are decluttering, it's great to hold the items in your hand and have I have this little saying that I always say when I'm trying to declutter myself. The saying is, what have you done for me lately? If the answer is absolutely nothing, then it is time to let it go. So just be mindful of when you are decluttering the objects, really have a look at what their purpose is, how it makes you feel, what they do for you, what they do in your life, and just be mindful of this, whether you're going to keep them moving forward or potentially they've served their purpose and no longer necessary. Hot tip number 4 is it's okay to let go. And it's about giving yourself permission to declutter your life. It's okay to let these things go. You do not have to keep everything that you have ever touched or everything you have been given. Sometimes your life can be freer, more meaningful, more worthy when you're not being weighed down by these items. So it's about giving yourself permission to let these things go and to say that it's okay to live a clutter-free life. Number 5, is it that it's just the sheer volume of stuff that it's blocking your first step? And this is the overwhelm. And like I said, it ties in with hot tip number 2. When you're faced with a wall of items, you don't even know where to begin. So it's about just starting small, start with one thing, one drawer, one cupboard, one item even, and just work on that thing. And then slowly over time, you will notice that you'll get the results everywhere else. But don't look at it as a huge chunk that you have to declutter your whole house this weekend, because you will just put the brakes on and be suffering from overwhelm, and that will stop you doing anything. I just had to put this in here because I absolutely love it so much. Another little great quote is, organized clutter is still clutter. Get rid of it. So it doesn't matter if you're trying to pack it up neatly in boxes and stack it. It's still there and it's still clutter. So this is what we're trying to address. We're trying to just get rid of it. So back to our hot tips on our pillars. The next hot tip page is the mind clutter hot tips. Number 1, is your mind clutter brain fog? This could be dietary related, and this is a path that I've recently taken, just looking at that brain-gut connection, and it's a bit of a movement at the moment. So if this is a possibility for you, perhaps it's something that you are eating that doesn't agree with you that is causing brain fog and therefore mind clutter. So I would urge you to go and see a professional, either a GP, kinesiologist, or chiropractor, and start looking at your mind-gut connection. Hot tip number 2, do you have repetitive negative thoughts about the past or a person? This is definitely something that is going to be a big weight off your shoulders if you're able to bust through this, and it is a big source of mind clutter. Are you having negative thoughts about people, past, or situations? Because it's time to start busting those. Number 3, is someone or something the driver of your life? You're not holding the steering wheel. Is someone else governing how you're living, how you're acting, how you're behaving, what you're doing, what your future looks like? This seems to be a really sort of toxic way to live and to move forward. So if you are finding yourself in this sort of situation, perhaps it's time to start addressing that and start making plans on how you can shift the balance here and start taking the steering wheel of your own life and start making your own decisions and moving forward. Hot tip number 4. The house is such a mess you can't think straight. Now, I like to call this my shit to space ratio, and I think we've all suffered from this at some time. It's when the house is just such a mess that it gets to a point that you honestly cannot think straight. And as I've mentioned here, my shit to space ratio quote, it cannot be exceeded. So know where your level of almost untidiness is. If you live in a smaller area, then when a few things are out of place, the whole place looks like a mess and you can't think straight. When you've got a slightly larger living space, then you can get away with a few more things being out of place, but know where your limit's at and know that that is something that is potentially driving your emotions at the time. Is it just that everything is so cluttered that you cannot think straight? And if so, then it's time to start getting in and decluttering. Like I said, just one thing at a time. Don't get overwhelmed. Just pick one thing up and do that first, and then continue on. And our final hot tip section is the time clutter hot tips. So number one, get off your phone. As I mentioned before, technology is an absolute time sucker currently for us, and we are living in a technological age, but just be mindful of when you're on your phone. It's easy to get addicted to just checking Facebook all the time, checking Instagram. The kids are doing swimming lessons, so you're on your phone. You stopped at traffic lights, you're on your phone. Any moment of the day, you have this urge to get on your phone. So just be mindful of, is your phone actually running the show here? Hot tip number 2, have a healthy level of kid activity. So pick your after school activities, your sports, your programs, whatever it is, but make sure that there's boundaries, make sure there's limits, make sure that you're not running yourself ragged, running around to all of these different events for the kids, and start connecting back to what's actually important and just the things that they love. Hot tip number 3. Draw the line around work commitments. And I know this can be difficult if it's obviously career and work is very important, but also just be mindful of bringing work home with you or saying yes all the time to work outside of your normal work hours. All of these are time clutter areas. So just be mindful of what your work or career is asking of you, and then decide whether or not that's important enough to take away from the time with your loved ones, your friends, and your family. Hot tip number 4, work on self-confidence. This will control your time and not others. So when you are confident in your own ability to say yes and no to things and why you're doing them, and you're the one that's in control and you're holding the steering wheel of your life, if for some reason someone asks you to do something and you say no, you don't have to give them a reason why, but just know why that you are doing it or why you're unavailable at that time. When you're steadfast in your decisions, you come across with this air of confidence, and therefore people tend to respond to you in a more respectful way. They're respectful of your time because you're respecting your own time. So start to work on those little wins of self-confidence. Hot tip number 5. People will respect you more when they see that you respect your own self and time. And this also is a link to number 4 there. It's just being really steadfast in what you want to do and where your time lies. Okay, so go ahead and mark in your workbook the area of your source of clutter. So that's question 1 in the workbook. So jot down where your clutter area is, whether it's home, mind, or time. And then have a little flip over the page to question number 2. And this is know thy culprit. Now, we have just discussed this in the hot tip area. So when you think of your clutter and your area of clutter, whether it's the home, mind, or time, now I want you to go a little bit further, and I want you to jot down there what it is about that pillar of clutter that is actually cluttered in your life. So what is it exactly that is cluttering up your time with that? Is it that you have an excessive amount of shoes, and you just absolutely love shoes because it makes you feel good about yourself when you buy them, and your problem is shoes and there's just way too many? So I want you to write down that that is your main source of that area of clutter. Or is it something that time? Is it the kids' activities that is taking up your time? Or is it that you're in a job that you absolutely despise and you feel obligated and it just takes up so much time and you don't have a life and no time to think about what you actually want to do as a person? Then write that down in this section. If it's mind clutter, is it something that you just can't get past a family relationship or a drama, and that's what's taking up all your time right now? So jot down what it is in question 2 that it is exactly that is cluttering up your life. Moving on from that is this warning. This question hurts. On page 2, I have another little hot tip, and it is asking yourself and owning where you are at with this particular bit of clutter. So I want you to own how you got to this point with your own clutter. how are you going to take responsibility on why this is happening in your life? And I do put in a disclaimer here that this question hurts, because when you have to take ownership and responsibility, it is much easier to point the finger at other people on why this has happened to you, why it's in your life, this circumstance, this situation, this person did this to me, and therefore this is why it's happened. But when you stop and you go, okay, well, I've allowed this to happen and I allowed that person to treat me like that, and that is why this has happened, then you start getting the confidence and you start taking full 100% ownership of your life. So I do put a warning in here that the question here, it does hurt, because you are taking full responsibility and ownership of where you're at and why this is happening in your life right now. So if you need a little bit more time just with that last question on trying to figure out how to take ownership, and even though it might feel awkward and you might want to fight me on this, and you feel that it's still everyone else's problem on why you have been here, and you want to point fingers and place blame, maybe just pause the workshop here and take a little bit time and think on that a little bit further and a little bit more deeply. And if you do get stuck on this and you really don't understand where I'm coming from or why we're doing this, please get in touch and I will absolutely help you with that question. So if you need to take a bit more time, please pause it and just have a little bit of a think, because that last question is really what's going to propel you forward. So moving on, I just want to put in this tiny little story here, and it's something that I was reading a blog of a lady who was moving overseas. So obviously she needed to downsize and declutter her life a bit of the physical goods, but she got so addicted to the feeling of getting rid of all of these things from the past that were weighing her down, that weren't serving her anymore, that once she actually did relocate, she continued on this path and this journey of decluttering. And she started this movement of basically just addressing and looking and either getting rid of, donating, or selling one thing a day. And I absolutely love this idea and this theory, and I've adopted it myself, and it just feels so good to every day you just stumble across something in your home and actually look at and go, hold on, why are you here? Do I need you? What are you doing? What have you done for me lately? And then I make a decision right then and there for it to either go, stay, get donated, or sold. And it's just a really good way to maintain and keep on top of what's happening in your physical space. And you could try this with thoughts that pop into your mind as well. It's a bit harder with time, and it takes a little bit longer to think about, an activity and if it's worthwhile or not. But just start with the physical stuff. Start with your home. Start with, opening up that second drawer down in the kitchen and pulling something out. And once you've identified what it is, because sometimes we pull things out of there and we don't even know what they are, just have a look at it and make the decision right then and there whether it's staying or whether it's going. So follow the lead of that lady who was traveling and decided to keep going with her decluttering, and start your journey today and keep going, just one thing a day. So following on from that enlightening story, and I hope you get excited about decluttering one thing a day, but this saying I absolutely love as well, because it's so telling. Your home is living space, not storage space. And I think so many people see it the other way around, that they hoard all these things and the home is where they keep all their dirty little secrets and shove it behind closed doors. But you really should be enjoying your living space. It should be a sanctuary. It should be enlightening you and uplifting you. So let's start changing that space. Instead of being a hoarding facility, let's make it into a sanctuary to be the best you can be. Getting back to the workbook now, so I want to run through question 3 real quick. We're going to make it short and snappy, because if the faster we get through question 3, the more impact it's going to have. I don't want you to dwell on this question for hours and hours. Just the short, little, snappy couple of words for your answer, short sentence, whatever pops into your mind first, that's actually going to be more powerful than sitting there mulling over an essay. So let's get into it. Question 3 in the workbook, clutter Q&A. So number 1 is, right now, what does your current clutter look like? Describe what it physically looks like in your life. Just a few little words, jot them down. Question 2. If you could take control of your situation and change it for the best, what would this actually look like in your life? Number 3. With your new clutter-free lifestyle that you designed in the above question, write below what this new clutter-free life feels like. What does it actually feel like to be in that new life? Number 4. If you can conquer your clutter, which you can, what would this new clutter-free life mean to you? What things could you achieve and accomplish that you currently are not able to? What new emotions would it give to you? This question is great because it makes you address, is your clutter holding you back some way? Perhaps you've always wanted to write a best-selling novel, but because your house is such a mess, you can't think straight, you can't string your sentences together, and actually having a cluttered environment is stopping you from doing something that you really love and really want to do. So let's jot that down. The final question is, coming back to our current clutter, what is the very first step you are going to take as soon as you leave this workshop? And the hint here is it could be something very small, but at least you have started the action in motion. Write down your first step. So just jot down really quick what the one thing is that you are going to do, the step in the right direction, after we finish this workshop. Just one thing. And there we go. Question 3, done and dusted, short and snappy. So let's move on. And you can come back to this later, and I want you to read over your answers a bit later on. But for now, we'll move on. And if you need more time with this question, please feel free to pause this workshop. My next question to you is, how is the world seeing your clutter? How is your clutter actually showing up in your everyday, and how are other people seeing it? So clutter equals an imbalance. Is your clutter making you crazy? So like I mentioned before, the imbalance, if your home is jam-packed full of stuff, there is an imbalance there. It's not a healthy sort of life to be living when you're so consumed with so much clutter that it's sort of showing that other areas of your life may be lacking as well, because you've got an excess over here in one thing, whether it's the physical clutter, the clutter in your mind, your time clutter is out of control. Where is it showing up in your life and then the rest of the world is seeing it? Is it making you crazy? Are you running around like a headless chook? Are you tripping over yourself and it's making you absolutely frustrated and crazy, and you're annoyed and angry, and you're tending to swear more because you're just so annoyed with all the stuff that's in your life? What is it exactly? Where is the imbalance? What is it doing to you on the outside? How are people in real life perceiving this? And this is something we don't ever stop to think about, but how are other people seeing our clutter? And it's coming out in other ways, not that we intend to. So how are they seeing that? Something to be mindful of. And leading on from that, on how people are seeing our clutter, this cute little thing that I've come up with is, I've got a bad case of the clutters, don't come near me. This is leading into the destructive behavior that comes from being cluttered and having a cluttered life, cluttered mind, cluttered home, cluttered time. So let's move into some destructive behaviors. On this slide here, we have all of our friends. Look at them all. They're all here. And I think everyone in human existence can find some sort of time in their life where they can identify with any one of these destructive behaviors. So let's see, we've got binge eating, self-sabotage, frustration, anger, no control in your life, anxiety, lack of confidence, panic attacks, mental health issues, perhaps alcohol dependency or other drug dependencies. And there's one here that I sometimes fall a victim to regularly as well when I get out of balance and my life is all cluttered in some way, and that is swears. We tend to get a little bit of potty mouth when we're frustrated and angry and annoyed. So be aware that these destructive behaviors are stemming from some area of clutter in your life. So this is exactly the fundamentals of this workshop. So where is the clutter showing up that you're showing to society in these destructive behaviors? What is this, and what is the clutter that it's coming from? So this is exactly the essence of the whole workshop. As we come up to the close of the workshop, I really want you to know what your first step is that you're going to take once we finish here today. Now, refer back to your workbook, and as I said, if you weren't able to use the link below or for some reason it's not there, please get in touch with me. I'm happy to get emails, or come and find me over on Facebook, and I will absolutely give you one of those workbooks. But go back now onto the second page of, sorry, I think it was actually the third question of the workbook, and know what your first step is, because I don't want you leaving this workshop without a clear intent and a very clear instruction on what you're going to do. So please refer back to that, or just start thinking now, what is the very first step I'm going to take? And now once you know what the very first step is that you're going to take and what you're going to accomplish and achieve once you finish this workshop, I'd like you to just take a moment and have a little think of, what's your number one takeaway from today? What was your one thing that resonated with you from this workshop? And it'd be great if you want to jot this down on the very last page of your workbook. That way, again, you can refer back to this at a later date. Perhaps you need some time to think over it. Maybe in the next day or two, something will pop back into your brain, and that will be the moment where you say, yes, that's exactly what I took away from that workshop. I wasn't aware that that was happening, but yes, that is it. And I want you to write that down just so you always have it as a reference. And that will definitely keep you going in the times when you feel like the clutter is getting on top of you. To wrap up the workshop, I just want to leave you with a little bit about what I do. And so many people ask me this, so I thought I'd address it here. What is coaching? Well, for me and in my coaching, I basically help people clean up their lives. At Bianca Black Consulting, we do a range of different things of coaching, and I'll get into that next. But just as a general idea on what coaching is, it's helping you clean up your life. The things that I focus on in my coaching are as follows: the holistic management of anxiety, depression, stress reduction, and all-round dark slumps. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm not a registered health professional, and I do urge people who do come and see me, if they are in that dark headspace, to be under the care of a professional. But we work on the holistic management of these areas, so the day-to-day tips and tricks, the little tools that you can have in your toolbox to help you get through the day, whether it's breathing, meditation, having people to call to help you through. So we work on all of these things. I also coach on putting your life back together after divorce, and this can be very tricky. The decluttering of your life, hence this workshop. And we also coach on stopping the negative self-talk, and I touched on this in the workshop, the pushers and the critics, and we work on just quietening down those voices. So if any of those areas are ringing true to you that you would like some assistance in and some help, then please get in touch. And as far as the workshop goes, it's not a party without a goodie bag. And I absolutely love to give things away to the people who have taken time out to better themselves, who want to change, who want to live a better life. So I want to reward you all. And if you've taken part in this workshop, I would like to extend the offer of having a free session with me on going through the finer points of this workshop. If there's any area where you got stuck, or you have a question about something or a particular thing that we spoke about, or if you want to just talk about a bit more personally and how it affects your life, then absolutely take me up on this free session offer. I'll have all my contact details coming up in the next slide, so please get in touch. It's absolutely open to everyone. And just to make sure you didn't think I was joking, I put this slide in as well, just to say it one more time. We love to keep the momentum going. And if you've got that fire in your belly to really declutter your life, doesn't matter what the area is, whether it's your home, your mind, your time, then please get in touch and take us up on that free session offer. We love to hear from everyone. And I just wanted to put in a second slide here so you know it wasn't a joke, and absolutely book that in. So this is it. This is how you find me. This is how you take me up on your free offer. You can find me in all the usual places. I'm on Facebook at Bianca Black Consulting. Come over there and join the group. You can email me straight away, biancablackconsulting@gmail.com. Please get in touch. I love hearing from you. Well, that's it, guys. I just want to say a big thank you for all of you who watched my Declutter Your Life workshop. I hope that it has inspired you and put a fire in your belly to go and declutter your lives. But thank you for being a part of it, and thank you for watching. And like I said, get in touch. See you later.